like squad tactics, teams. I don't think any of us are really going to be doing that anytime soon, so we ain't really got to worry about that. So first one's listen only, family, local communication, and long range communication. Listen only includes basically things like your AM, FM radio, which is a good source. Your hand crank emergency radios where you get the NOAA weather station and emergencies on them. Scanners, police scanners. CB radios, even though they're kind of falling to the wayside, they still have their purpose too. GMRS radios, and we'll go into those, and ham radios. I put the last two under listen only because it's not illegal for you to buy them and own one. You can turn it on, you can listen. You just can't broadcast without a license. Unless everything goes south, then all bets are off. Do whatever you want. Just saying. So, short range localized, walkie-talkies, everybody sees them at the store. They're good and bad, very short range, depends where you're at, if you're gonna actually get a certain distance with them. They're also known as FRSs, Family Radio Services, walkie-talkies. They have pretty much a range line of sight up to 2 miles. That's if there's trees, mountains, and all that stuff. If it's like there's nothing in the way, then you'll get up to 2 miles. Some claim that you get up to 5 to 10 miles. You may not. It all depends. Basically, the frequency ranges from 462 to 467. They have their certain channels. They also share about 8 channels with GMRS radios. And it all depends on the wattage as well. These are good, localized, family, short range, working on a farm, or very close range. These will work in a pinch. Eventually, you're going to want to upgrade something a little bit long distance, and then something else a little bit long distance. That's what we're going to go into. Bad thing about these is that when they're manufactured, they're all manufactured with the same frequency. So some radios will work with other radios, and certain types of radios will only work with those radios. So like the ones we have upstairs, we have one set that only works with that typical brand. The other one is programmable. We're actually trying to work on that now to reprogram it so it works with other walkie-talkies. So we have a wide variety. So we're not just like switching from this radio to this radio like we do every Sunday, trying to figure out which one everybody's using. These are the frequencies. If it's a little blurry, I'm sorry. I had to do a lot of cut and pasting. If you look at these, like I said, channels 1, 8, and all that stuff, they're all paired with GMRS. And what it is because walkie-talkies have such a low wattage, working wattage, like 0.5. So they have their own line with GMRSs. And basically, the lower the wattage, you could actually use a GMRS to talk to a walkie-talkie. And some of them you can do vice versa as well. But you only have certain frequencies that are designated for FRS and GMRS under a certain wattage. Because the higher wattage you can go, the longer distance, but also at the same time, you're going to overpower everybody else's communication, so nobody's going to be able to hear what you're saying. Like I had my GMRS out this morning, and I was sitting in the parking lot, and there was just one guy just telling his life story, and nobody else can get on the radio whatsoever. So, yep. So all these, I'll give you guys all the frequency. I got a card with all the frequencies for ham radio, GMRS, and walkie-talkies as well that I can send to you guys or hand out after class. CB radios. We know a lot of truckers use them. A lot of people have gotten away from them because they're such an open frequency that anybody can get on one, short range, a little bit longer range as well. But like it says, I mean, a lot of people are pushing them to the wayside. If things go south, I mean, I think it'd be a great thing to have a CB radio because everybody's gonna be looking to walkie-talkies, cell phones, like stuff like mesh tastics and all that stuff. To be using those, they're gonna forget about that CB radio. So it'd be a good thing to have for localized communications under like 20 miles. The bad thing is though, it's such an open frequency that say, let's get everything went south, and you didn't want certain people to monitor you. I'm not saying who, but you don't want them to monitor you. It's such an open frequency that they could just turn on their CB as well and hear what you're saying all the time. So good and bad, just like everything else. I mean, every radio has pros and cons. It's all about your situation and what you're going to use it for. Yeah, so CB radios have about 40 different channels and sidebands. You're not supposed to tune them. I'm just saying that. You're not supposed to tune them. So what you do on your own time is up to you. Just like it says right there, you'll be able to listen on plane recon and local news reports. Also, a lot of some police stations still use them as well, so you can hear what they're saying. Emergency still uses them, but they also use GMRS now as well. But I mean, if you have a CB radio, that's great. I'd keep it close by, make sure it works. But I mean, you don't have to go out and spend money because there's other options that do a lot more now that you can actually get for the same price or less prices. Just a little information on CB radios. Up to 20 miles. Right there's a citizen band, frequencies, megahertz. And right there, that's why it doesn't transmit as far as you think. It's all about wattage. On everything is wattage. The higher the wattage, the farther you're gonna go.
You can tune and throw a linear on as well, like a linear transistor is what I used to use, 10,000 watt.
Yep.
And I can talk to Texas. What kind of cost are you talking about?
For CBs, I have not looked at the cost. It's one of those things where I keep on meaning to look at the cost of a CB. I mean, you can get them for pretty cheap now. Like,
Yeah, it just depends.
yeah, it depends on them. I can look at after class. I can look it up for you. But it's not bad to have. But you also got to realize too, CB radios. It's kind of like base stations for GMRS and ham radios. You're going to need a power supply that transfers 12 volts to, was it 110? 110? To 110. So in the long run, I would go with like a ham or GMRS just because of all the equipment. We'll go into all the stuff that you need. And those are more of the frequencies. Now, if you get a CB radio, these are common channels right here for CB. It's a good thing to know. I mean, all of them have them. GMRS has their prepper channel. They have their emergency. They have their highway as well. You got your over-the-road truckers. You could hear some wild stories on that. So. This is what I mainly use. I haven't gotten into the ham radio yet just because I don't want to study and take a test. That's a lot of work and really just don't want to do it right now. General mobile radio service. It's kind of like the in-between between a ham and a walkie-talkie. You can reach a lot of people or not. Depends on your terrain, if you're in the city, your wattage, the kind of radio you have. It all depends. But the good thing about GMRS is if you get it's $35 to get licensed for 10 years. And everybody in your family can use it. Your mom, dad, brother, uncle, cousin, everybody can use it in your family. And that's why that was like the old price. But it has better clarity over long distance, but it also does have a lot of squelch. Squelch is very like the static that's coming in. So you got to be careful about that. It all depends on the radios, antennas. It's a UHF band as to where ham radios, VHF, and high freq HF bands. So you get ultra high, then you get very high, then you get high freq as well. These are good for, I want to say, anything under like 35 miles, 40, 50 miles. It all depends if there's a repeater nearby. I'll go into that a little bit towards the end. But just like these, they all have their designated channels. You have, let's see if I got, I'll get to it. But you have certain frequencies. You have like 1 through 22. I think 1 through 8 or 8 through 14 is like FRS radios. It's at 0.5 wattage. And then you got 5 wattage, and then you got 15 wattage and up. So the higher you get. Handhelds, usually the highest you'll get with a handheld is probably 8 watts. When you get a base station, you're looking at anywhere from 10 watts to 50 watts. And like personally, I have really cheap ones. They're not the greatest, but for my needs as of right now, they actually suffice. But you just got to be very careful about GMRS. If you're in an urban environment, all those buildings are going to diminish your communication greatly unless you have a really large antenna. It's one of those radios. The higher up you are, the better. GMRS license, right there, immediate families. Once you go online, if you do decide to get a GMRS license, I just want to let you know, the website is terrible. It's horrendous to navigate through it. But once you sign up, you pay your $35. Within 24 hours, they'll approve your GMRS. They'll send you a certificate that if you want, you can print out and carry along with you, but it will give you your call sign. And if your family wants to use it as well for call signs, you could all use the same call signs, or you can add an extra letter on the end, Alpha, Bravo, or the first initial and all that stuff, so you can identify who's on it. So it's a good way of communication. I mean, it's nothing is going to be foolproof at all. So it's all basically what you want to go with. Now this is going into radio types. Some radios have are advertised as walkie-talkies, and then you got GMRS radios that are advertised as GMRS and FRS. So you can use them as a general radio or a family radio as a walkie-talkie. And they even have a new handheld now that basically is all three, plus a FM radio as well. You can do an FRS, you could switch it over to GMRS, and then you could switch it over to ham radio if you had the license. The only problem with those are, a lot of them, because they're newer, once you switch over, everything you had say, it's like all the stations you had in GMRS, if you switch over to ham radio and switch back, it defaults back to the original channels. So you're going to have to reprogram it again. So it's still fairly new, but it's coming out. I think they're going to get better with time. To a location. This is going to get you to where you want to go. Basically in a smaller area. Grid north, magnetic north will get you close to the area. Sometimes close to the area, not always close to the area. I mean, if you look at the difference between 6 degrees, when you start walking, more and more and more you're going to split. You're going to be heading north, magnetic north, but you're going to be not going to the northern destination that you're headed to. So over 100 feet, you're going to start splitting apart more and more and more and more. So it's going to throw you off course to where you actually want to go. Now, if you're looking at a map and you're solely using like a map around this area, and you're just trying to get to the northern point that's like straight up and down, yeah, I mean, that and a compass will get you fine. But if you're actually, I say this is more if you're actually ever have to like leave for good and you're going to somewhere, this would be the best option. Is remember declination. And that's what it looks like right there. You got the west 6 degrees, 50 degrees east. Mount Rainier National Park, Acadia National Park in up there on the east coast. And this is actually harvest right here. You have the 6 degrees west. Not too much worried about that little number. I'm more worried about this degree right there. And this is the NOAA website. You could actually use this as well. There's also a tool on here, besides declination, to help you with your own compass. It'll help you kind of calibrate it a little bit. Right there. Right there, once again. And it shows you right there, there's your magnetic and your true north. Two people took off walking, magnetic. You're going to be in a completely different areas. Topographic maps, I think, are the best maps. Nowadays, you got satellite maps that you can get on Google. But if you look at those, you don't know how old they are. We looked at like Zillow. We're looking at houses to get a house. We're looking at Zillow, and we looked at a house. Okay, so I always want to turn on the satellite because I can see a little bit of basically the property line, and I can see what's around me with the neighbors and all that stuff. And we clicked it on that house, and it wasn't there. So the map hadn't been updated yet, the satellite map. So satellite maps are good to an extent, but you got to realize how old imagery is. Just like a lot of maps too. You look at some older maps; those are outdated. Added roads, added structures, declination has changed. It's always good to have a map that's pretty much made in the last, I want to say 4 to 5 years. It's a good start. And most of us, we've seen road atlases and all that stuff. You got the highways, streets, and all that stuff. But that mainly just tells you streets and highways. It doesn't tell you what's in there, what's around there, terrain features. My biggest thing is I want to know my terrain features. That's why I go with the topographic map. And basically it shows you indentations, mountains, hills, streams, rivers, creeks, and all that stuff. It gives you the indentations. It gives you where they're at, location, elevation. Most common ones, brown contour lines. Black is always man-made features. Blue is water. Green is vegetation. Red highways. I've never seen pink or purple on a map before, but be looking out for that now. So natural and man-made objects kind of helps you decide where you're going, what you need to avoid, places that you could stop as well. Four basic kinds of information: direction, distance, positions, and identification. And how you take care of your map is your own business. But I would recommend, nowadays you can get a lot of the hiking maps and state forest maps. You could actually get the laminated version or the waterproof version. They're still the humongous pulled out maps, but they're waterproof, so they last a little bit longer. Or if you're going somewhere, or even around here, take Google Maps, take a satellite picture of it, print it out, print out the topographic features of it, and just print out the road version too, so you have all the maps around here so you know what's around here, what to avoid, or what to use. Now this didn't come out very well, as I thought so. Map margin information. Basically, down there, you always see at the bottom left corner, you always see your declination for that part of that map. Not all maps are made the same. This could be a national park that's right next to another national park that's part of another map. You'll have a state map, and basically all these maps will have a number and a letter that identifies that grid for that map. So if we're looking at Ohio, basically down here there'll be information right there. I think this is for Colorado. And it shows you right where this map is for that area of the state. Like I said, the larger you go up in numbers, 500,000 and all stuff, the larger it's going to be a state map compared to a localized map. Nobody really cares about the authority printing the map. We just want a map that works. And this is why I like topographic maps, terrain features, elevations. As you can tell right here, this is going into a valley right here because there's a creek right there. As you can see, it's descending. Map margin information again. State is also given, but it also includes the area covered and the type of map. For Montezuma, California. Then you have your grid coordinates for that whole section of the map. It gives you a distance per grid squares in between. Just like we talked about man-made features, primary highway, hard surfaces, secondary highway, basically all your little roads. Some of them have, you know, like if you look at a hiking map, you got the hiking trail, you got your bridle trail, then you got like State Forest using like their service trails. All should be marked on the map and tells you, and this will give you all the information you need. Nobody cares about the credits. This is the biggest thing, is the scale right here. This is a 1 in 24,000. This is one that would be used for hiking, as you can see, dotted lines right here. A lot of times, hiking trails, service trails. As you can tell, the measurement from 1 mile, how the zero starts in the middle. So basically what this is for, this side of the section, when you use your compass and you use the ruler on your compass and you're measuring distance from one point to the other, these are in 1/10. So you don't have to use the complete mile and try to guesstimate every time you measure. 1/10 for every tick mark. And then it breaks it down slowly more into feet as well. And it shows you right there how it breaks that down. So basically, you have your smaller scale, your 0, then your larger scale to measure out your distance. Now, distance, when you plot a point on a map, it's not going to be an accurate distance. Because you got to think about terrain features, hills, creeks, everything else, deviations from that. So that's where the term as the crow flies is basically your distance when you are plotting a distance with a compass and a ruler, because as you know, crow flies, basically, it's a straight line. It's not touching any ground, it's not touching any terrain features whatsoever, so it's going to be a straight shot. So basically, you're going to look at this from here to here, you're going to say, okay, you know, that's what, 1 mile. And in all actuality, it could be 1.25 miles, it could be a little less, depends on the terrain features. And if there's any obstacles in the way that you have to deviate around. Now, terrain features. I can tell you how much I love terrain features. I failed it 3 times in basic training. Till I got it right. But as you can tell, like contour lines will tell you certain things. Sharper the circles, steep slopes, the wider, more gentle. So you can tell, look at this, tell this is a mountain, more of a hill. Just on the width, how they're a little bit wider. These right here are your elevation designations. And basically, that's what it would look like. Got a mountain, a little bit less of a mountain right there. Same elevation right there. Most maps will have, every 5th line will have another elevation to tell you what the top furthest most peak is. Right there, every contour lines, that's the point the line is. So this is a little weird. Your map will tell you the elevation designation on your map. Let's say like 20 feet, 100 feet. So you use those to count in between these. But if you look at this, okay, you're like 1440, 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, it's 5. It's 5 lines. And then you'd break those 5 lines down. So see, that's 400 feet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not good at math, so 400 divided by 5 is 80. Okay. So each one of these will be 80 feet. If I'm doing my math correct. I'm not sure. Yep, oh, right there. So always keep that in mind. So when you're counting these contour lines from the base all the way up to the peak, 4 lines is really 5. So always add that extra line. So 4 plus 1 all the time. These, as you can tell, mountain hills are different. As you look down here, depressions. Depressions, craters, and all that stuff. You're always going to have some kind of weird circle, and you have little lines pointing in to tell you that there's a depression or there's a dip in the land. And here, where we come to map scales, 24,000. Yeah, this is the biggest thing right here. I had to refresh myself on this because there's so much conflicting basically talks about this. Some people say like it's 1 foot, it's 1 centimeter, it's so and so. Because to find out it's 1 inch right here. So when you get like a 1 in 24,000 map, 1 inch on the map when you're using your compass and ruler comes out to 24,000 inches in real life. So do you do the math on that, on how many feet, meters that is? I mean, that's something good to know. I don't think I added it in here, but I actually told you how much 24,000 feet or 24,000 inches were. And just like I said before, large scales and small scales down here. 1/4. And so where 65,000 is a smaller scale map having less detail. I kind of went reverse on that. 164 wants to have a greater amount of large scale map. See, I'm conflicted about that. Because I always read that the smaller this number is, the smaller the map, or map area is. So I'm going to have to look into that. No, I'm correct. Yeah, because if you do 1 in 65,000, then that's 65,000 inches. So, yeah. I think that was a typo down there. Right there. For 1 in 24,000, said sometimes your scale will look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 10, broken into 1/10 of a mile. And then solid line for 2 miles, or you could use this as a 0 to 1 mile measurement. Little example, different terrain features, peaks, saddles, draws, crevices, things of that nature. Like we talked about the peak, the highest peak is you see the smaller circle, ridge line. If you've ever done any hiking like Red River Gorge, you'll see a lot of these ridge lines down there on their maps. Another peak. Right there's a cliff. You can tell because it's a lot closer and you can see how it's almost a straight line. You know it's going to be a straight line drop off right there. And you can see the water features below. Valley. Right there where the creek is, how all the lines start contouring towards the valley. Basically, a saddle's in between 2 high objects, a hill and a mountain, or a mountain and a mountain. That's going to be that little indentation right in between them. You can always tell those between the 2 high elevations and the little indentations right there. Dictate that's a saddle. Sparse vegetation and dense vegetation. I mean, most maps you're going to see, especially national park, they're not, very rarely you're going to see any sparse thing like this. You're going to see more of dense vegetation, everything green because of forest. And I really don't think this loaded all my slides. Let me look through. Yeah. So part of the presentation was cut out. I'll take care of it at the end. Actually, now would be a good point. Let's see. No, I think when the Chromebook went south, I lost some slides.
Okay.
So it's not on your end; it's on the Chromebook end.
Okay now?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
So before we go forward, we'll go back to compasses. There's a couple of different ways to hold a compass, such as for base plate compasses. Proper way to know how to hold them. Let's see. All right. All right, just a normal base plate compass.
Is that the military?
No, this is just a regular hiking, backpacking. This is the one I'd recommend. It's kind of hard to see, but on the back I got my declination changer, and I got the small key to use to adjust the declination. You get a rotating bezel. As you can't see it really now, but north is that way, so I'd line it up. Now, the biggest thing is when you're looking for what direction you're going, once you plot it on your map, is when you're looking with these base plates, compasses, when you want to hold it towards your stomach in a flat line to get the best bearing. But there's also a problem with compasses too. You got a metal belt, metal ring, anything metal is going to set that needle off. So you got to be careful what you have on. Just like when you hop in a car, in a vehicle, you hop in a truck, you're surrounded by metal. That compass is going to start going a little haywire. So you got to be careful about what you're around when you use a compass. So basically the compass to the tummy cheek is what a lot of people use for these compasses. I mean, you can do it like this, but you're going to start getting wobble, and the needle's not going to move as freely as you want. And for these, when you're sighting in, say you're shooting an azimuth, say you're going to walk a certain amount of distance, and you want to head, say, like a 280 degree bearing. What a lot of people do, you could either do the compass to tummy and get your bearing, which way you want to go. Make sure you turn the whole body and compass, not just the body, or you won't get an accurate reading. Or with the sight mirror and the signaling mirror, as you tilt it down and you hold it out, and you could actually look through this hole when it lines up, say with a tree, a rock, a building, and that mirror is to look down at your compass and tell you what that degree bearing is.
What kind of cost are you talking about?
What's that?
What kind of cost?
Oh, these range from anywhere from like $10 to, I mean, they have compasses out there for like $200, $300. This compass itself is like $20, like $10, $20. They're not very expensive. I mean, any compass will do. As long as you have a compass, it'll get you in a general direction and get you close to where you're going. It depends how accurate you want to be. So, I mean, base plate compasses are great, but as for military compasses, when you sight them in, this one's not really per se a military compass, but it's a military light compass. So what I'm missing here is I'm missing that sight ring right here that you usually have on a military compass. Right there. I do not have this right there. I have a different modified version of it. But when you look at this, it's kind of hard to see. I'll let you guys see these. But there's a sighting arrow that you can use. And basically with these, military compass is the same thing. You do the stomach, but you actually, if I had the ring itself, actually I could use this ring back here. You want to put your thumb through the ring to stabilize it. Finger on each side, 2 L's, and you want to hold it to your stomach. And then turn your body, and it'll tell you what direction you need to go. Or when you're sighting the object from a distance, say a tree or something like that, this one has 2 front sight marks right here, and this one is actually different than that. It actually has basically a little magnifying glass that actually has the degrees and everything in there. So instead of looking through diagonal at the compass itself, you look through this hole. So, and to sight it, basically the cheek, the compass method would be you want to put up against your cheek and look at it, and you'll see the degrees and you'll line it up with your tree. So that's 2 ways to use a compass. I mean, it's kind of hard. Let me just look through this real quick. Nope, okay, we're gonna make do with it. So, learn how to read a map, and then when you put the portions together, basically, let's go. Don't worry, after this, I'll fully upload the full presentation that was chopped off. So, using the map and the compass to find a certain direction that you're going. Most maps, you look at a thing, you got a starting point. Say you're going to start over here, and you want to go over here. You're going to start plotting your points and the best route. You're going to look at your topographic map. You're going to see what routes you can take as hiking trails, service trails, if there's any trails, or if it's just you're going to bushwhack it. If you just go for a straight line and go through everything. Measure the distance, and you're going to kind of look at grid north, magnetic north, and you're going to kind of shoot an azimuth on your compass so you know when you get out here to start which direction to head to. So here, say you're at your point's say 65 degrees. You're going to put 65 degrees. So you know 0, 65. And always remember, so I'll put 65 degrees out here for my main point. And then when you shoot a back azimuth, basically it's the reverse of 65. So it's going to be the opposite direction. You put that degree back there, it will help you basically keep track of where you're going. So this right here is used for, say, you're out in the wilderness, you got your map, but you don't quite know where you are, you get lost. Everything starts looking the same. You could actually triangulate your position. 3 different points or terrain features. Look at that. Shoot one first. Nothing less than 60 degrees. Always make sure it's above 60 degrees. Shoot another one. And then look around if there's anything else. Say, on your map you see a massive forest. You shoot a forest over here. You shoot that degree right there, and then you triangulate in a straight line, and it'll give you your rough estimate of where you're at. Is it foolproof? I've never had to use this, so I can't really say, but that's how a lot of people use to figure out their location. Okay, what are your points? We'll get into that here in a second. Now, oftentimes, if you're traveling, you've been to a new place and you don't know where you're going, but you know that a certain place you're going is somewhere on the map. Let's say you're starting down here and you're going up here. Once again, you plot your point, plot your distance, you know how far you got to walk, but then you take into consideration walking and all stuff, if when you get your destination, if it's going to be directly on point, if you're actually going to be there, if it's going to be reliable like a GPS grid coordinate, if it's going to put you right on the dot, or if it's going to put you in the area around it. Now, if you're getting out here and you're looking for a certain thing, say somebody's cabin or something like that, and you don't quite see it, there's certain ways that you can actually help you find it. So you walk your certain distance, your certain mileage, when you get there, you don't see it. So you can do something called the spiral method. As once you get to your waypoint, when you get to your waypoint, set something there, like a stick or something, a flag or something. Don't leave your bag there. Don't ever leave your bag there because you don't know if you'll ever get back to it. And basically what you're going to do is start walking in a circle, in a spiral, to see if you can find it. Start getting closer and moving out. There's also a method called the box method. You get to the point, and you break that small area that you're in into small boxes. You search one box, mark it, search another box, mark it. The box method. The most helpful that I think a lot of people use is what we call handrails. Handrails in buildings and all stuff is to help you guide you. Handrails on a staircase. So a handrail would be a case of you're going to a point, but you don't know much about that point. You don't know what's around it, but you know there's a road close to that point. The handrail method would be using known existing objects, buildings, roads, lakes, and stuff like that as a crutch. It's basically it's a crutch. So instead of shooting a direct azimuth or a bearing, start walking that bearing to that point, I'd shoot 5 degrees off to either side, because I know if it's a road, once I reach that road, instead of doing the spiral method or box method, all I know is I got to turn east and start walking down towards it, and I should be able to find it. It works well with roads. I mean, that's how they always tell you, like, if you get lost, find a road. You do that with buildings, lakes, roads. Pace count. Now, a lot of people know their pace count. So this helps you, along with map reading, to figure out actual distance and to a certain object. Yeah, I mean, you may know it's a mile long, but you may not know how many paces it takes you to get there. Sometimes you won't have all the information that you need. We use this a lot. Basically, a pace count is a certain distance and how much you walk. So basically what you do is you count every other step. So if you lead off with your left foot, the first step would be 1. You won't count the right, then you'll count the left one again. W2. You want to do this for 100 meters 2 times. You take that, divide that in half, because you don't know if your pace count is going to be 65 one time and 62 the next time. So basically what you're taking both those, and you're basically find your basic pace count. You could do that for 100 meters or 400 meters. Now, the biggest thing about pace count too is you'll have people, when they try to do the pace count, seen so many times, all of a sudden they think they're gigantic and just start stepping like that. It's like, that's not a real pace count. That's going to throw you off. What you want is your normal walking step. Not too slow, not too fast, but like a normal average pace would be your pace count. This helps, especially if you got to go from point to point. When you're shooting like a dense forest and all that stuff, or you're not familiar with the place, or you know a certain waypoint, but you don't know the known distance that'll help you get there. It's best used too if there's more than one person too. So your nighttime pace count will be different. It'll be a lot shorter than what your daytime is, because diminished sight at night, you're not too sure what's in front of you. As you all know, like if you woke up in the middle of the night trying to use the bathroom, I'm sure you're not just doing a regular stride. You're taking smaller steps, feeling around to get to the bathroom. So it'd be good to know your actual daytime pace count and your nighttime. And you also got to take into account when you use your pace count, a map, and a compass all together, it will not be exact due to terrain. So if you know you got to pace out a 1 mile to where you're going, so you're going to count a mile. A mile is what, 1,600 meters? So you know it's 1,600 meters. But you count on 1,600 meters, but you realize you're not there yet. But then you got to look at the terrain. Did you go up mountains? Did you go up a hill, incline, decline? All that stuff plays a factor. The pace count will get you within a certain distance. If you notice everything's going to get you in a certain distance. It's not going to be exact on unless you have a GPS. So you got to take that into a factor. This works great where if you're plotting a course, you know it's a mile out, but you don't have a map, but you know it's a mile in a certain direction. So you know you got to get there, but you want to keep track of how far you've walked, because you don't want to overwalk, you don't want to underwalk. You want to be exactly at that certain pace. And it works great with 2 people or even more, especially when you're out doing something, you're counting your pace, you're trying to get to a certain area, but there's no path. You're bushwhacking in through somewhere, nothing's marked, you got barely any terrain features, you're in a forest, you're in a jungle. Using your pace count and another person and a compass is pretty much all you need. The biggest thing is you send them out a certain distance, you shoot your azimuth towards them. Say, I'm looking at you, we're gonna go let's go 360. I'm gonna send you straight out that way. And as you're walking, I'm gonna tell you left or right, until you're on 360, and I'll tell you to keep going straight. To a certain distance, then you stop, then I join up with you, and we just keep on going, and it'll keep us on track, nonstop. Now, there will become a time when you're doing that, you're doing your pace count, you're doing your map, you're keeping track of all that stuff, that you come to things like building, let's say a lake and all that stuff. So you know, you're looking at that lake, you know it's a deep lake, you know you can't walk right through it, but you know, how do I get around it? It's going to throw off, you know, my direction and all that stuff. All you really got to do is when you get to that lake, you stop to where you're at, look on the other side of the lake, see what they're trying to identify a certain feature, a certain kind of tree, certain kind of rock. You know, that's the direction you're going to head. Once you stop there, mark where you've been, and then you're going to turn 90 degrees, walk a certain distance, keep your pace count. This is where pace count comes in handy. Pace count to the edge of the lake, turn another 90, and basically you're going to make almost like a big old square. You keep your pace count, because once you come around to the other side of the lake, you're going to need that pace count again to either get you close to that tree or line you up with that tree, and then you can continue your journey. Now, this is one of those things where class is good, general information is good, but actually getting out and doing it is really good. That's one good thing about it here, like Houston Woods, Caesars Creek, and all that stuff. All the hiking trails they got out there, you can get out there and actually use the compass. You can actually look at the map and actually read the map and do it. You can download them off of the Metro Park websites and all that stuff. You can actually go out there and do your own land nav as well, because you're not really going to know how to really do it a lot until you actually do it yourself. Right there. How to get around obstacles. Set a waypoint, compass bearing. I mean, don't overcomplicate it. Just turn 90 degrees to get around. If you're going straight, turn 90. I mean, there's no need to be like, I'm going to go at a 65 here, then I'm going to go at a 40. You're going to confuse yourself and you're going to get thrown off. Just stick with 90. Make it easy. Now, how to find north without a compass. Now, Mike probably knows more about this than I do. My biggest thing is like, I would look at vegetation, which way the vegetation is growing, trees love sunlight, plants love sunlight. So they're going to kind of direct you towards which way the sun is. That comes into play with using the sun as a direction finder. Now, living in the northern hemisphere, we should all know that at noontime, the sun is not directly above us. Because we're in the northern hemisphere, it's actually above us, behind us. So, the quickest way, a lot of times, I mean, different situations, you're not going to find yourself at noon every day, but like, okay, I'm going to find a direction. You know, it's going to be 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning. But what you can do is at noon, the highest part of it, when the sun's at its highest, face the sun, because since it's going to be a little bit behind us in the south, you can actually face the sun, and then you know that's south because of where the sun sets, because it sits a little bit behind us in the south. That's where, if you're in the southern hemisphere, the sun will be a little bit north on you, so you know where north is. You could use that as one way to tell where north, that'll just tell you where south is. Now, finding north, which should be just the opposite direction. Will it be actual magnetic north and all that stuff? If you don't have a compass, probably not, but it's going to point you in a general direction. These are all kind of things that if you don't have a compass, a map and all that stuff, that you can use to help you get out of a situation. There's also a technique called two-stick technique. And basically what you want to find is 2 sticks, roughly about 3 feet in height. What you're going to do is stick that stick in the ground, because that sun is going to cast a shadow. Then you're going to wait about 10-15 minutes, and wherever that shadow moved, the end of the shadow, you're going to stick another stick. So basically that's going to tell you where east and west, which way east and west is, because as we all know, sun rises in the east, sets in the west. So your first point, the first stick that you put in at the beginning of 10 minutes, that's going to be your west point. And the second stick is going to be, let me sure I'm doing this right. Yeah. So the first stick is going to be your west point, because it's traveling west, so it's going to cast an easterly shadow. So you, between those 2 sticks, when you stand between those sticks, you'll know west and east. And then you'll, depending where the sun is, you will figure out where north and south is. Now there's other ways you can do. You can make a compass out there, or you can kind of like make a survival compass. If you had a needle or a razor blade, a magnet. I mean, simplest way is find water. If you got a needle, which like your everyday carry, you see I always carry a small sewing kit wherever I go, no matter what. Take the needle out. If you don't got a magnet, demagnetize it, rub it in your hair or pet fur, animal fur, whatever you want. Rub it about 100 times to get it staticky. Put it on a leaf and put in some water, and basically I'll tell you where north and south is. But that will give you a general direction. It puts it into play too, but you got to know your surrounding. You got to know where the sun's setting. You got to know certain things because they'll tell you where north and south is, but do you actually know where north is, or is north actually south? So you got to know your surroundings. You got to know where the sun's setting. The biggest thing, I didn't put nighttime because if it's nighttime, don't look at me. I can't read the stars. I'll get you lost even more. My thing is if I need to at nighttime, I'm not traveling. I'm staying put. I'm not going anywhere until next morning. Now, if you talk to Mike can probably help you with that nighttime. We had that discussion the other day. I will get you lost in the night. So, things to take into consideration. Not all compasses are going to be the same. I mean, certain survival compasses, you've seen like the little ones on keychains and all that stuff. They'll do in a pinch. They'll work. Magnetic north. They'll get you in the general direction you need to go. More expensive ones, lensatic compasses. I mean, some of them are expensive. I've seen like the actual USGI ones are like $300, but I'm not paying $300 for a compass whatsoever. I could use $300 for other things. But find a compass that's kind of reliable and that works. You don't have to use the declination right away, but learn magnetic north. Use it when you go hiking. Use it, kind of familiarize yourself with it. And I can't stress this enough. If you're using a compass and a map, no matter what direction you're headed, turn the map in that direction. Because it does you no good if you're holding your compass north on your map and you're looking at north and then you're trying to walk east. Because then you're like, okay, if I'm going to walk east and north, I'm going to turn my map so I'm walking in that direction so I can actually keep track of where I'm going. I've seen so many people just trying to walk and fiddle with the map. Don't really need to. Mm-hmm. That's why I was always taught too. That's what I was taught too. It's the best situation. I mean, if you're by yourself, yeah, but if you have somebody with you, doing land navigation, map, and all that stuff, finding your waypoints, it's so much easier. You send them out, they find a certain degree, they hit that spot, then you can meet up with them and just keep going. That's why I always find a good measure if you're plumb points and you're shooting azimuth. Find something within 100 feet. Find something past that. Find at least 3 points that are in a straight line. So if I see a boulder, then I see a tree behind it in a building, I could use those as kind of a direction I'm going so I can hit that tree, make sure I'm hitting that tree. Mm-hmm. Yep.